So Donald Trump's gift to America is that he made politics interesting. Not fun, but interesting. Now that people are paying attention to what MAG is all about, to what Republicans are all about, let's have a look at the most recent group of elections. We had big city mayor races come in. We had all kinds of elections that went on this week. Check it out. All right, this is from Al Jazeera. This is a fine online rag. It's where Ali Velshi and who else? Who's that other fella I like so very much? Talk about him all the time. He looks like he and Chris Hayes look like they're 12. Christ. Anyway, it's where some of my favorite cable news folks come from. This is by apparently the whole staff. This year will not see decisive elections at the national level in the United States, writes Al Jazeera, but a few municipal and state contests this week may be a bellwether of where voters stand ahead of the presidential vote in 2024. Think of this like a sampler of how people are feeling around the country. What is modern politics? And more importantly, how are people describing modern politics? Voters in Florida, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania headed to the polls on Tuesday to choose local leaders and party nominees for statewide offices. A popular saying in U.S. public life is that all politics is local. I think that's true. Off-year elections, which fall between presidential contests and midterm votes, can be consequential. Here, Al Jazeera looks at key races from Tuesday's election. By the way, I always call midterms off years. I don't know why. I've known it's wrong for some time. I promise you I'll do it again, and I hope you'll correct me when I do. Trump-backed candidate for governor wins Kentucky primary. All right, fair enough. Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron, who was endorsed by former President Donald Trump, comfortably won the Republican nomination for governor, fending off two serious opponents, including one who was backed by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Okay. Step one, what do we learn from that? Signs that voters who vote Republican like Trump more than DeSantis. Good. If you don't vote Republican, you should despise both those people. They are both foul. Trump has done worse things, but I mean, you're really just measuring what level of hell they belong in. With nearly all ballots counted, Cameron had around 48% of the votes. DeSantis endorsed Kelly Craft, a former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, came in third, more than 30 percentage points behind Cameron. Understanding that this is also going to come down to the popularity of the individual politicians, it's nonetheless a great way to point out how these people are viewed, how their sponsors are viewed. The Florida governor, who has yet to announce a presidential run, but is largely seen as Trump's most serious challenger for the 2024 Republican nomination, came out publicly in support of Kraft a day before the election. So to me, that just tells me what a bad politician DeSantis is. I don't know why you would make room for this story in your life. You could have just as easily backed no one. What would it matter? Trying to make, it sounds like, a political ally and instead making a fool of himself. It is not clear how that endorsement or Trump's backing of Cameron affected the race. I assume it didn't very much either way, but it's nonetheless interesting. But the former president, who is seeking the White House again in 2024, took a victory lap and slammed DeSantis on Wednesday, referring to the Florida governor as the sanctimonious. Jumping down, Cameron will take on incumbent Democratic Governor Andy Beshear in November in what is seen as the most important election of the year. If he wins, Cameron would become Kentucky's first black governor. Truly, even though I don't think it matters as much as centrists make it out to be, I do think representation is important. And I do think, even if this guy is scum that is going to sell out the people of Kentucky for a dime. I do think it's good that Republicans think it is necessary to try to nominate some people of color. Good. A loss for Republicans in Florida. Ooh, get your popcorn. DeSantis was dealt another blow on Tuesday, this time in his own home state of Florida, where he has been touting his proclaimed achievements and conservative credentials. In Jacksonville, a city of nearly 1 million people in northeast Florida, Democrat Donna Deegan beat DeSantis-backed Republican Daniel Davis in the mayor's race. How did I screw that up in the last 3 words? Jackson is now set to lose its status as the largest U.S. city with a Republican mayor. Its current mayor, Lenny Curry, was unable to run this year because of term limits. Don't know how I feel about term limits, genuinely. Love won tonight, and we made history. We have a new day in Jacksonville because people chose unity over division, creating a broad coalition of people across the political spectrum that want a unified city. Deegan, a former local news anchor, wrote on Twitter late on Tuesday, "We will bring change for good to Jacksonville by making good on the decades-long broken promises on infrastructure, building an economy that works for everyone, and improving access to health care." Just real quick, I don't want to understate what a big deal that is. It's hard for Republicans to win in a city. Because cities have a lot of people. Cities require a lot more serious politics, as in like genuinely doing the job. And cities tend to have diversity because people gather together for safety. So this is huge, and this is a very good sign for Florida. Setback for progressives in Philadelphia. Public safety has been the top issue in major city municipal elections in the U.S. in recent years, mostly because right-leaning media has drummed it up. As crime rates have risen since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, mayoral races, more conservative. All right, here we go. Pay attention to how they're talking about the Democrats here. Mayoral races in several Democratic-run cities have pitted progressives who advocate for more funding for social programs and education to tackle the root causes of crimes against moderates who advocate bolstering law enforcement. Notice how they are making a bigger deal about talking about the different factions of Democrats. Notice how they are making a less big deal earlier in the article about talking about the different factions of Republicans. For Republicans, the factions are just divided up by their chain of sponsors, a chain of personalities. But policy, they haven't even run on policy in years. They didn't have a platform for Trump. They did not have a platform for him. Democrats, however, they're talking about differing ideologies, how the conservative Democrats and the progressive Democrats are separating. Here is one example on police reform. Obviously, police require reform. We have police lynching black people in the United States. We can't have it. Cannot have state-sponsored murderers. So what do? Well, Democrats are seriously talking about this. Democrats offer a conservative way of dealing with it, which is, the traditional old-fashioned way. Pour more money into the police departments, let them buy tanks or whatever they want to terrorize people. And then progressives have a way of dealing with it, which is, sane. The point is, when it comes to serious political discussion, already foreign news organizations are doing it correctly. And they're talking about Democrats versus progressives, whereas that other party, that third party, the Republicans, they're just insane. That's accurate. That's a good way to discuss it. With most balanced, Parker's public safety platform called for hiring more law enforcement officers, sure, and prioritizing filling vacancies in the police department, absolutely. With most ballots counted, she earned around 33% of the votes Tuesday, placing first among 5 serious candidates, including Progressive favorite Helen Jim, who came in third. Damn it. Parker, who was favored to win in November against Republican nominee David O., would become the city's first female mayor. I'm so incredibly honored to yada, yada, yada. So look, the takeaways from this. First of all, Ron DeSantis is not catching on, and I'm glad, because I want Trump to be the face of this madness. I don't want this madness to have a legacy. Second, and also on that first point, Trump he's going to prison, or at the very least, he's going to be convicted. He's done. I'm positive he's done the crimes it looks like he's done. We have insisted that they get investigated, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the state of those investigations. But so long as the American people continue to put pressure on the Justice Department and insist that this get taken seriously, Trump will be running for president while he is dealing with charges of sedition. And all this bullshit, all this jibber-jabber from Republicans is going to be hashed out in court. And if he has a case to make, you know how we're always saying, show us the evidence of these wild things you're saying, and they never can? Well, the time to do it is going to be here. If you want to be a free man, show us the evidence. Oh, you don't have any because you were making this up because you're a liar. Okay. Guilty, prison, get the out of here. That's thing number one. I am glad that that Trump is beating DeSantis in terms of popularity. Good. To tie the whole Republican Party to that sinking wreckage and let them drown. But then the other thing, number two, the Democrats are being looked at now as two distinct political factions. It's a way to describe two political factions, and the way to more accurately describe them is progressives and conservative Democrats. Or as they're I think they're still calling them centrist, but they are acknowledging that there are progressive Democrats versus standard, the old-fashioned, I guess. And the old-fashioned Democrats are now the conservatives. That's fine. We can have conservatives. It's totally fine. But the fact that they're being acknowledged as two different factions means that when the fever breaks on MAGA, and I suspect it's going to break when these people see consequences. One of the very first videos ever done on this channel was about different levels of maturity and how at different levels of maturity you understand right and wrong through different external means. If you're a grown-ass adult, Salty Saturday, I don't got to be nice. If you're a grown adult, then you vote obviously Democratic in some capacity, and you view right and wrong generally through principles of some sort. But if you are not very developmentally advanced, in other words, if you didn't spend much of your life thinking about right and wrong seriously, then you tend to look at things in Kohlberg's earlier stages, where you look at whether or not somebody got in trouble for it. Right now, it's real hard to say that Trump got in trouble for anything. In fact, he can even get away with doing that nonsense about saying, well, it's just a witch hunt. It's just a show trial. Because what's happened at the trials? Even in the E. Jean Carroll thing, he got found civilly liable. And then what happened? Is he in prison? It really is that simple. They look at, they hear rapist, and they're like, well, he's not in prison, so this must be nonsense. They couldn't really put him in prison because he didn't really do that thing. Oh, he had to write a check for $5 million? That's just what women do, they say. They're just trying to steal his money. He can make that case because it doesn't, to them, because it doesn't line up with what a child would view as crime and punishment. They're not going to pay attention to the nuance. But we are getting to a place in these trials where money won't be enough to pay one's debt to society. And we can't keep pretending like we have equal justice until Trump does some prison time. Probably, I would hope, permanent prison time or permanent custody of the state in some manner. When that happens, there will be a sea change. It will, and we need to start, by the way, that culturally now. It should already be unacceptable culturally to announce you're a Republican. It's unacceptable, just barely, culturally, to announce that you're a Nazi. Should be the same thing with Republicans. When that happens, you're going to have a flood of people saying, "Oh, I was just fiscally conservative," fleeing to Democrats. Bunch of CNN watchers. When that happens, I'm just saying, build the infrastructure now to deal with it. Build the infrastructure now to help make it happen. Put that idea in as many Republicans' heads as you can, that there's conservative Democrats, so that they choose to do that instead of joining January 6th too. And also, amongst Democrats, put the idea in their heads, particularly if you got people that pride themselves on being lefties but don't really follow politics that closely, put the idea in their head that the true lefties are the progressives, because that's just the facts. We got a lot we're going to do today on Salty Saturday. I'm looking forward to all of it. And boy, a lot of it involves that punk Trump. It's fun.